both groups, and I think one of the key factors is to understand the importance that this sector, the arts, culture, leisure sector, can contribute to a whole range of services that we're talking about today, whether it be children and young people, whether it be transport, whether it be economy, or whether it be health and well-being. And the fact that certainly in the GSA there was limited reference to the sector and the contribution, and that's probably down to the sector not being prompt enough in terms of getting its statistics, its information across in the right way. But it's a very valuable asset, and the whole service is a very valuable asset, certainly in the Salisbury area. There were a lot of people representing a lot of bodies in that area. I think there was a focus very much on much more of a community and participatory arts and leisure service, rather than necessarily, to some extent in this area, it potentially is quite a funding towards the highbrow end of it, and how we can actually work then to address and to support those local communities, certainly the deprived local communities, in terms of going out to them rather than expecting them to come to us. We have bricks and mortar, we have buildings, but we equally need to be going out into those deprived areas and actually delivering services there, where affordability is a key issue, where transport is a key issue, and I'm sure transport will come up, and public transport and affordability there. And there were some very good ideas and suggestions. There's a lady here representing the Pemberton Heath activity trails, and how we can make better use of open space. I think Maggie mentioned at the beginning, you've got a lot of open space on your doorstep here, some right within the city centre, and how can we make better use of that free space and get people out into days like this, into a healthy and safe environment. There was also certainly an issue around, as I mentioned, around affordability and transportation. Another one was around inclusivity. There's a lot of reference to age groups, to disability, and we need to ensure that we look at all of that in one, as opposed to start maybe targeting different groups, because intergenerational working in those deprived areas is about working with all of the people in those areas, rather than just sort of targeting individual age groups. And to really take a lead on that. And I think that the funders and some of the voluntary groups and organisations that are here tonight have got a real active involvement with that, and certainly the people on the table that were discussing that were really enthused about how they could become more involved. I think that covers the key areas. The only other one was around how we do consult and how we do discuss things with young people. The average age here tonight, wouldn't like to guess, but certainly how many young people are there here? And not only necessarily is it right for them to be here, but how do we then communicate with them? Should we be asking young people about how best to communicate with them, and how to get the best out of them, and to get them to feed in ideas? And again, there's some people, looking at some key people around the table that have got a lot of knowledge and experience in those areas. So really, the key message is don't forget the arts, leisure and cultural sector. There's a huge contribution that it can make to a number of services here, and please do involve everybody. Thank you.
We've talked about as well. We set out to talk about falls, alcohol, smoking and obesity, and we kind of meandered, as you'll see in a moment. We started with falls, and the biggest interest to do with falls was repairing pavements, which I kind of tried to convince people wasn't really a health and well-being issue for our table, but pavement repair is the number one issue to do with falls. But that did lead to the idea that if the pavements were safer, there'd be more walking, more activity, stronger muscles, better balance, and maybe people would fall down there, especially older people, if the pavements were safer. That led into discussions about better use of green space, which I think Gary just mentioned, and having more active groups, especially for older people, because retaining activity as you get older is critical for not falling, basically. And that led to play parks for older people. Now this for us was a fantastic idea because it's a very cross-cutting idea, because it links into other areas. And one of the things it leads to is that the older person's play park is also open to younger families. So they come together, they meet. So you tackle loneliness. You can also get skills transfer. So a young family who can't cook, for instance, might meet an older person at the play park who has cooking skills, who can maybe transfer those skills to that young family, which is kind of free of charge. You don't have to invest to pay somebody to run a cookery class in an area if you can arrange for somebody who already has those skills, who's willing to transfer those skills free of charge. And that can happen socially. It doesn't always require investment to do that. We studied into obesity, and our main discussion on obesity was it's a kind of family-centered thing. So we should be targeting the areas where we know it's worse, and we know it's worse in deprived areas, and there's 4 areas named in the JSNA, and we should focus on those deprived areas, and it's about food culture and cooking skills and activity, and it links back to those play parks again, you know. All roads lead back to this adult play park. Also cookery in schools, which is kind of happening, cookery in communities, it's kind of happening, going down that road anyway. We talked about alcohol, I think that's been mentioned already. We had a discussion about reducing opening hours. We had an ex-police officer on the table who said it doesn't work, just you drink more in the allotted time that you have. We can do more about checking age and identity, but is that really the problem? We need to change the culture. Can you do that in a hurry? Probably not. So what else can you do that's practical? Well, maybe try and find something that would engage people who drink too much to take their mind off drinking. So maybe it's finding out what are the things they're interested in which don't necessarily involve alcohol, and arranging for them to start doing those things. What else have we got here? We talked about false alcohol. We talked about smoking. We felt a lot is happening with smoking already, but again, it's higher in some areas of Salisbury, so maybe there should be some targeted campaigns to those areas. But that also led to kind of respiratory conditions and asthma and air pollution. So we felt that air pollution, or one person mentioned, seems to be a problem in Salisbury. There was also at the end a discussion on the importance of having mental health as a focus, which links into unemployment and the culture and the level of happiness in the area. So mental health is to do with everything. So you may understand why I now say it's cross-cutting, and it's back to that older people's play park again. An area where people come together, get happier, get less lonely, transfer skills, talk about what they want to happen in their area and make it happen without necessarily us having to pay somebody to come in and actually do it.